Welcome to the Chief's Garage. For all of you who've subscribed to the channel, thank you. And for those of you who this is your first time, this video and all my videos are about my 1990 Mustang GT and what I did to take what originally looked like this to now what is this. In this segment, I'm going to take you through the mechanicals. The mechanicals are something that I'm really comfortable with. I'll be glad to explain to you any of the things that you see in the videos. There weren't a lot of steals for this one because, you know, in hindsight, it just didn't take the time to do that. But for those who have followed along, my Mustang has two engines. It has the original 5.0, which is sitting in the corner here, and we're going to get into segments of where I'm going to rebuild that, and I've got a project that I'm calling Summit Soldier for that. The existing engine in here now is a 306 that I built from scratch. But for the purposes of this video, I'm going to take you back of what I did. And I told everyone in the beginning, my whole purpose with this vehicle was to make it dependable. It needed to be, drivable. And I did a lot of things that I did to it, piece by piece, all here in my little small car garage. And for those of you guys who've also seen all my other videos, this is just another in that the Chronicles of my 1990. So stick around, subscribe, and if you guys see content or if you see something that you think I should have done better, send me a post. I read them all. I'll be glad to reply to you. I'm going to split this video up with this mechanical system separate from the engine that is now built. The 306 that's in there now, we're going to put that in the next segment. But tag along, take a look. I'll show you what it is that I did and why I did some of the things. Guys, it was a labor of love, but like most of you, I did it with the time that I had and the budget that was available with kids in college and all the rest of it. So it was by no intent designed to be a show car or a super go car. But it has to drive, it has to stop, and it has to be reliable. Those are my main three, guys. And so take a look here. I'll show you what I did, and stay tuned. What I'll do in the next segment is show you how I built the 306 that's in there now. Well, it's the morning of my build. Starting to tear everything down. Got inside and got the lifts and everything out of the shed and got prepared to pull the engine out of this. From here, you'll see that the engine was, in rough shape. It was just really covered with grease and oil, one just greasy pig. Got it all out, got it up on the engine stand, started to assess things and look at it. Went back and took a look at the transmission that I pulled out first, and it was the original Borg Warner, just in really bad condition. And I took it out, had a friend take a look at it. Just was going to require more effort to rebuild it. So we'll talk about that later. But pull the bell housing off. It looked as if someone had been cooking fried rice in it. It was in pretty bad condition. But this is all reusable, just really dirty. Main engine seal leaked, so it had slung, oil all through the bell housing. Clutch, everything was all saturated in that. I did this off of simple jack stands and things in the floor. Crawling around you on your hands and knees gets old after a while, but it's what I had. The clutch and pressure plate, all of those things were not original Ford. They looked to be box store, and I could see that someone had resurfaced the flywheel at some point. I didn't reuse any of this stuff, of course, but just for reference pictures. After taking the intake off, I could see that there was lots of carbon buildup, and this is, guys, just poor, engine maintenance, or bad oil. You could use better stuff, but ended up pulling most of that carbon-looking stuff out of it. And guys, I tell you, the engine was just filthy inside. I used mineral spirits and brushes and cleaners, and you'll see it in some of this. It was just everywhere in the intake. Of course, I tore the engine down to the rotating assembly, so I was able to get all the grit and dirt and stuff out of it. But I got it pretty clean before I did anything to put it back together. Uh, when it came to the engine itself, there wasn't anything that didn't leak. The valve covers, front seal, rear seal, everything about this engine had grease, oil leaks. Like I said, it looked like it had about 264,000 miles, even though the odometer said 164. There was evidence that at some point it had possibly overheated. I could see the rusted sprayed water up behind what was a box door alternator and tensioner pulley. Um, Everything in the engine spark plugs all rusted. Everything was just nasty, filthy. Most of it came apart with PB Blaster. There were some, bolts and studs, of course, things that broke. I didn't reuse any of the EGR stuff, so that all got tossed. But you could even see that the dampener itself, the elastomer inside of that, starting to come apart. This is probably typical to what you'd see for any engine that's got 200,000 miles that wasn't well maintained. Um, Even the water pump looked like it came from a box door. It did, and I could tell it wasn't original. I found that after I pulled the intake off and took off the water neck, that the thermostat was in the housing backwards. Uh, this is just more pictures of ballooned hoses, and some of these I took for reference at the time because I was taking this apart and I had never taken a Fox body apart, even though I'd built engines, many, many, many engines I've built over the years. Uh, a lot of this didn't get replaced. A lot of the looms, all of those, I cleaned them all up and replaced them with new wires and things like that as we kind of got through the build. But originally, I wanted to drive this thing, so I'm putting effort just to get it running. Uh, got the water pump, got all the pieces off of it, tore it all down, looked into everything. Most of this got reused. If it looked like the part was reusable, I reused it. So I ran this water pump for a while. Later ended up putting on a original motorcraft unit. Here you can see the upper top side of the engine. I did eventually pull the heads, sent them out, had a 3-angle valve job done on them, put a new oil pump in it, new timing chain, basically all new gaskets. Everything on the top side got scrubbed, cleaned. The injectors appeared to be good, all except one, so I only at the time replaced one. And just really got in and got all the filth out of this thing. The intake itself didn't appear to be leaking, but everything about it was just filthy, and you could see all this rust. If there's rust, that means that's liquid engine somewhere blew out of someplace at some point, and I think they overheated it. Didn't find any problem with the heads or the blocks, so I cleaned it all up and went to the local store and got some duplicate color, rattle cans and basically sprayed the intake with wheel paint and the valve covers and the intake with high temp paint. Pulled the throttle body, the EGR plate, all of this stuff all apart. And I don't have stills of that, but I put it back together all clean. And I also wanted to make sure that that the throttle body was actually good. So at some point I cleaned this all up, put on a new IAC, and I didn't need to change the TPS. It actually was good, and it didn't have any leaks around the blade, so I reused it. Someone at some point in the engine's life had replaced the alternator. It's the cheap 75 amp alternator, but I didn't reuse the smog pump. I actually put in a smog pump eliminator, and that pulley I'm really happy with. Put it all back together, got it up on the engine stand. This is the day before, I think, that I put it back in the engine. You can see the black headers there. They were a cheap set of pace setters that I just bought so that I have something to put on it. These are off-road H pipes from late model restoration that I put together. Originally I used everything um, uh, from the original mufflers to the tailpipes, even though they were not the best brand. They were there, and it got the car back on the road. Um, I didn't even take the paint off these headers. I just put them back on the engine and ran it, and the heat smoked them up. And at some point, they all the paint flaked off, and it stopped smoking from the headers. Probably the best 1,700 and $10 I spent was on this new Tremec 5-speed that I bought from late model restoration, and I got 10% off when I bought it. So a good deal. Brand new transmission, new clutch, all of that stuff was all new when I put it together. It changed out everything in the drivetrain when it came to reliability. Dropped it all back in as you see it here. it was a fun a piece of work there. Actually, had my son help me do a little bit there, but mostly just operating the crane so I could get it back, set back in the engine bay, new motor mounts, all that kind of good stuff, and got it all hooked up. At some point after driving it for a while, I noticed that if I ran it really hard, it would foul out the number 5 and number 6 plug on the driver's side. So I went in and put in a small, catch filter um, off the breather in the back, and it solved that problem. And I started running, instead of just running 10W30 in it, I was running 1040 in it, and it didn't have any problems after that. But we'll be talking about engines and what I replaced this with. And like I said, I drove it for 2 years like this. So yeah, you can see my little filter in the back there. But thanks for watching this, guys. And I'm going to show you how I built the now 306 in the next video. Well, guys, I hope that video was informative for you. Please drop me lines and comments if you would. And if this content is something that you guys are really interested in, tell me what else you'd like to see. Or if there are questions about my build, I'd be glad to answer them for you. And as always, get out there and build something. Thanks for watching.